Yo, welcome to my YouTube series on how to make your audio on your live stream sound good. Today we'll be covering a topic that I feel like is the most important thing when it comes to audio mixing and has saved my ass many times, the compressor. So back in the day, the way you would get compressed audio was you would use something like this rack-mounted device here. And this device was not cheap. It was very analog, but it got the job done very efficiently. These days, you can still buy these. Like, people still prefer using these over digital solutions, but they are enormously expensive. So back in the day, all audio processing was done with hardware modules such as these. These are very analog devices. Each device has a specific function. For example, that's an equalizer, that's a compressor, effects board, so like reverb, and another compressor. These days, you can pretty much do everything this rack does entirely in software, well, minus the preamp. Software will try and emulate this hardware. Usually, software audio processing falls into two categories. It will try and emulate the hardware. So it will try and emulate the circuitry in this to try and replicate some of these sounds, which is why with this one, you can buy this as a plugin. Or it does it with sort of both. Tries to emulate the hardware and just does the rest with Mac. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because you got to understand each compressor has its own tonal quality and they don't all sound the same. Even though they perform the same function, they won't sound exactly the same. There are many forms of compression, but we won't go into it in this video. I'm just going to tell you what's more applicable for streaming and what will work best for you. So how does this all tie in together? Well, today I'm going to show you how these things work and how you can apply them to your live stream. I will provide you with some quick tutorials how to do some basic stuff. The long one will definitely benefit you. Okay, to clarify, this video will not be an in-depth guide on the history of compressors. It will instead focus on what I think would be more applicable to you as the live streamer. Okay, so the way the compressor works is that it changes the dynamic range of the input sound. But what is dynamic range? So dynamic range simply just means the difference between the loudest point and the quietest point of your audio input. So using this graphic, so say you're whispering here, your whisper's down here, your normal speaking voice is here, and right at the top is your loudest point. And what the compressor will do is it will basically just squish that so that everything's a bit more normalized. If you put a compressor on your microphone, it will stop the loudest parts peaking without having to make your normal speaking voice quiet. So basically going back to the graphic here, you could just see everything's just squished. So your normal speaking voice will be the same volume as you shouting. So if I speak normally and then I start speaking loudly, you can hear the dynamic range is level. Everything just sounds level. Okay, so let me explain the compressor bit so in a way that you can understand. So here are your basic compressor settings. So you have the ratio, the threshold, attack, release. So what does all of those mean? I'll tell you right now. Okay, so the first one is ratio. Ratio just means how strong the reduction is going to be in terms of the dynamics. So for example, we have a ratio here of 4 to 1. The 4 represents how many decibels of reduction we're going to get. For every decibel that crosses the threshold, the compressor will reduce the volume by 4 decibels. Ratio just means how much reduction of audio we'll get from the compressor. So the threshold, it's pretty self-explanatory. The threshold determines when the compressor will activate. For every decibel you go over the threshold, it will reduce by X amount, whatever your ratio setting is. So attack. So if you don't know what attack is, in music production mainly, you'll see these settings called attack, release, sustain, and decay. And they all mean something pretty important to the way the sound would be shaped. So attack pretty much means how long it takes the compressor to activate after hitting the threshold. It's not really much more of a turn on, turn off. It's more of a roll on. So release is just the opposite of that. It just determines how long it takes to turn off the compressor rather than turn it on. It also rolls off as well. Now gain, or often called makeup gain. So when you compress audio, you're sometimes losing some volume. And the rule of thumb with plugins is that whatever you put in must be the same as whatever you pull out in terms of volume. So what that means is your input volume should be the same as your output volume. This is to avoid headaches down the road. Unless you're going for something very specific, it's always recommended what goes in must be the same as what comes out. So I'll show you with my voice. And you'll notice that like my voice will start getting even worse. The higher the compression, you will start hearing like lip smacks, like my lips hitting each other. You can hear all the sounds, and there's a point where it just becomes really unpleasant. So to quickly recap, ratio means the attenuation, threshold means when it will turn on, attack is how long it takes to turn on, release is how long it takes to turn off, and gain is to change the volume. Okay, I'll show you a quick tutorial right now on how to set this up. Trust me, it is super easy, and I'm going to be showing you two methods, the OBS built-in compressor and a free plugin set from Reaper. Hello, and welcome to my Hall of Mirrors YouTube tutorial on how to use this compressor in OBS. So the main goal is to normalize the dynamic range of your volume. So basically get the loudest points and the quietest points more closer to each other in volume. So that way your voice will come through more consistently in the stream. I'll also set it up in a way that it won't distort. To find the best gain setting, try this. Speak and shout as loud as you will probably be during your live broadcast, and adjust the gain so that your loudest point won't clip. Okay, so for this section, I'm going to be turning up the volume deliberately so you can just hear me. Otherwise, it's usually really quiet like this. Okay, so the first step you want to do is go to your audio mixer here. Go to your microphone input and click the three dots and go to filters here. So you should have this blank window. And this window is responsible for all the audio manipulation we'll be doing today. Think of this window as your best friend. Okay, so what we want to do is go to the plus here and then click the compressor. Okay, so now we will have all these settings here, and these are the same ones we were just talking about. The ratio, threshold, attack, release, and gain. Okay, so for ratio, we discussed this before. Every decibel that goes over the threshold here will get reduced by this number. So at the moment, it's set to reduce it by 10. Every time it gets to minus 18 decibels. Now, if you want the best ratio, it really depends on who you ask, but for a live stream setting, anything between 4 and 8 will work. Because it's not too strong, and it's not too weak either. Like 4 is still pretty strong compression. So for this example, I'm going to use 7.5. So to determine the threshold, this is easy. So go down here into your volume mixer. And you'll see when you speak, this meter goes up and down. Now pay attention to where that meter is going. Okay, so looking at the meter here, you can see my normal speaking voice is around, we'll say minus 30 to minus 20. That's the normal range of my normal speaking voice. So that gives us an idea of where we should set the threshold here. So you can see it's at minus 18 right now. The way I do it is I'll take the normal speaking voice range here, get the lowest average number, which is around 30 here, and go slightly below that. So we'll go to about 32. Even with these settings on right now, it's already doing what it's supposed to do. For example, this is my normal speaking voice. This is my shouting voice. With the compressor on, this is my normal speaking voice. This is my shouting speaking voice. As you can see, it didn't go as high as it did before. And that's exactly what this is doing. Even from here, it's already squashed the dynamics enough that your volume is consistent. But we need to go a bit further before we're done. So the attack. So you want a nice short attack, but you don't want 0. The setting that's default here is fine. We won't bother with that. So we'll leave attack at 6 milliseconds. Recommendations for the release time, it really depends. Like the different release times give different characteristics. So I reckon just have a tinker. Just don't go too low because it will start getting really punchy and it will start sounding weird. Now that we've done that, it's time for the final step, turning it up.
That's what this gain here is for. So quick side note, OBS has a limiter but doesn't let me turn it up, so I'm just going to use it in here. Okay, so now we're up to the gain setting, and all we're just going to do is just turn it up. As you can see here, it's sitting around here, and that's in the really quiet territory. We want to bring it around here between 10 and 15. So all you have to do is just turn it up until your normal speaking voice resides around the 10-15 area, and that is pretty much it. You have successfully set up your compressor. So for example, if I start shouting, it won't clip. And here it is with the compressor. Normal speaking voice, shouting, shouting, shouting. Here's an example without the compressor. Normal speaking voice, shouting, shouting. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to go to this specific website that I'm pointing at. And here you can download the Reaper set of plugins for free. These are free plugins that you don't have to pay anything for, but they work really nicely for what we're doing. Now, the difference between these and the built-in OBS one is these give you a bit more control, and they're much easier to use. I'll show you. All right, so once you have installed those plugins, you want to go back to OBS and click on the plus and go to VST2X. We want to call it Compressor. And then we want to go here. So when you install those plugins, this list should be populated. You want to find the one that's called Reaper Compressor. So you open this and you should be greeted with this window. Now it might look a bit confusing, but it's pretty much the exact same thing we did before. It has all the same settings. You got the threshold here, ratio, attack, release. So we're just going to do what we did before. So for the threshold, look at the green bar here and basically just move this so your normal speaking voice is just about level with it, about here. So you can see it's pretty much level. Then we want to go to the ratio and we'll just set it to the way we had it before. So we had it set to 7 before. 7.2 is close enough. We had this set to 6, that's close enough. Yeah. So this is the configuration we had with the built-in OBS compressor. Now, as you look over here, you can see a red line dropping now. That is the attenuation. And this is a good indicator to tell you that your settings are working. That's pretty much it. We're done here. Like, we don't need to really bother with anything else here. For what we want to do, this is it. So if you look here, you can see that if I start shouting, the red bar goes all the way down. So I can speak as loud as I want without it clipping. Bop, 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 bop. So now all we need to do is what we did before and just turn it up. So just turn it up so that it reaches the -12 here. We'll say 12. So there you go. So now our normal speaking voice is sitting here. And our loud speaking voice is attenuated, but it's still sitting at 12, which is what we want. And it won't sound overly compressed. So that's it. You now have cleanly compressed audio without all the stupid artifacts.
Okay, so you've gone through all of that crap. What compressor do I get? Do I get like a expensive one or a budget one? To be quite honest, the built-in OBS compressor and the Reaper set of plugins would work absolutely fine. You absolutely do not need to go and spend an enormous amount of money just to get good compression. The free ones work perfectly fine. Unless you're like a mix master engineer, you're not going to really benefit much from more expensive plugins. It's not what you use really, it's how you use it.
Oh, you made it this far. Oh, okay. Thank you for watching today. I hope you gained some insight into how the compressors work and how to utilize it in your stream. If you enjoy what you watch, consider subscribing or at least following me on Twitch where I do speedruns like an idiot every day.
Okay, so I want to show you something funny, right? So this is called the Distressor. And it's kind of funny because over here it has the nuke button. My personal favorite by far is British mode.